Hey, what's up everybody? Quentin here with Mid-South Outdoor Life, and today I'm bringing you a really quick video that's going to be quite a bit different than my typical fishing videos. You see, it's hunting season right now, and where we're from, deer season is in full effect. Everybody is all obsessed and all wound up in the whole deer hunting process, from the kill to the table. And so I thought, why not do a video on that? Because it just so happens that there's a very specific part of the deer and a very specific way to cook that part of the deer that our family really enjoys. And I wanted to share that. I wanted to share it because it'll not only help those of you out there who hunt, but it'll certainly help those of you who don't hunt, but maybe you kind of want to dip your toes into the wild game arena, so to speak. And that's because you'll be able to get this part of the deer for free, more than likely. Because even if you don't hunt, I'll bet that you know a lot of hunters, whether they be your friends or family or your neighbors or whatever. And the truth of the matter is, probably 90% of deer hunters out there either don't know about this method or maybe they don't want to take the time to mess with it. But we think it's one of the best parts of the deer, and that's the ribs. Most deer hunters actually just throw this away. They never even remove it from the animal. That's not really our style here. So we messed with a few different ways of cooking this. We landed on something that's great. We're going to get into it right now. So first up, if someone is giving you this deer, they're more than likely going to be giving you 2 full slabs of deer. Obviously there's the left and the right side of the deer, and you're going to get 2 full slabs. That's enough to feed quite a few people when this is done correctly. If you're lucky, they will have separated those two sides into the halves. And then all you'll have to do is saw them down the middle. You can use a bone saw, or you can use a reciprocating power saw with a brand new blade. I'll put some pictures up over here of the halves before and after I cut them. These here are obviously already trimmed. As far as ingredients in this dish, it's super simple and almost free. You need some cheap root beer, salt and pepper, and some kind of dry rub. We like strawberries around here, but it really doesn't matter what you choose. You need a crock pot, and you need a glass bowl. Step number 1 couldn't be easier. You want to marinate these deer ribs in some root beer. Brand doesn't matter. It can be alcoholic root beer, non-alcoholic. We find that it doesn't matter at all. It doesn't even matter if it's still carbonated. It can be old stuff. Just that nice, sweet flavor is all that really matters. And truth be told, you don't have to marinate it for a really long time. We've done it anywhere from 30 minutes to 3 hours, and can't really tell that it makes a huge difference either way. So pour the root beer on the ribs and set them in the refrigerator for somewhere between 30 minutes and 3 hours. So about 1 hour later, I've pulled the ribs out of the marinade, and it's on to step 2, which is our seasoning. As I mentioned before, you can go with pretty much any dry rub you want. But first, I like to hit them with a pretty liberal amount of salt. And then a little bit of pepper. It's always a good idea to go ahead and do both sides of the ribs, by the way. And then I'm going to follow up with my dry rub. And I go kind of heavy on that as well. This kind of helps to add a little bit of a bark, so to speak, to the finished product. And of course add flavor. And there you have it. That's generally what mine looked like just prior to cooking. And I'm going to get that going right now. I mentioned earlier that you're going to need a crock pot, and I'm going to set mine to high. And I also told you you're going to need a glass bowl. You're going to take that glass bowl and you're going to set it in the crock pot upside down. Why is that, you might ask? Well, it's because now we're going to take our marinade, our root beer, and we're going to pour it into the crock pot because we're going to steam cook these ribs. And that glass bowl is going to keep the ribs just up out of that marinade so that we don't wash off our dry rub that we just applied. So yeah, the crock pot's on high, the marinade is in the bottom, the bowl is going to protect the dry rub. I'm just going to set them right on top of that bowl. It's okay if they hang off the side of the bowl. No worries. We just want to keep the majority of that dry rub dry. Now I'm going to take this lid, I'm going to cover the ribs, and I'm going to completely ignore them while they cook on high for the next 6 hours. And during that time, that sweet deliciousness of the root beer is going to vaporize and work its way up through the deer meat and make friends with all those seasonings that we added to the outside. It's going to make a delicious combination. Now for you pessimists out there, I know you're thinking, steamed meat? I don't know if I'd like that. Well, stay with me because we got one more step, And by the time it all comes together, we're going to end up with something that is quite like any other traditional method, like a smoked method or a grilled method. Just stay with me, because we're almost done. Okay folks, through the magic of editing, 6 hours have passed, and it's time for the last step of this process. As you can see, I've removed the ribs, and I've put them on a simple baking sheet. The aluminum foil is totally optional. And now we're going to hit these with just a little bit of sauce. And I mean just a little bit, because the deer ribs already have a nice rich flavor, so we don't want to totally mask that. In fact, one of the only reasons to use a little bit of sauce is because we're going to put this in the oven on broil, and we want to caramelize this sauce a little bit. It'll kind of help to add a little bit different texture. It'll add a little bit of char, and it'll make these a little bit more like if they had been just put on a smoker or put on a grill. But that steaming process was necessary because deer ribs would, by their general nature, be somewhat tough. And this process cures all that. That's my oven telling me it's ready to broil, so we timed this just perfect. So I'm going to hit this with just a little bit of sauce. I chose just a couple dashes of honey-based barbecue sauce and a few drops of Frank's Red Hot. I just splashed it right on there, and now I'm just going to kind of spread it around with this little brush. Just like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. And that's it. We're going to throw it in the oven on broil for about 10 minutes. You want to kind of keep an eye on it. When this begins to blacken and give you a little bit of char, they're done and they're ready to eat. Check that out. After about 8 minutes under the broiler, these things look and smell as good as any ribs that ever came off a grill or a smoker. Let's find out how they taste. Whew. So the bones are a little too hot to handle at this point, so I'm just tearing off a little bit of meat. Here we go. As I suspected, delicious. Now you might be wondering about the texture because it's a deer rib. I think the best way to describe it is, you know how when you eat pork ribs from a restaurant and they fall off the bone and they're basically just mushy? Well, they're not like that, which to me is a good thing. These are something that you can actually sink your teeth into, but yet, as you can see, it comes apart easily. I would say it's similar to maybe some sort of a beef roast or something. Absolutely delicious. I highly recommend you try them. If you got some suggestions or comments on how I could improve on this, or maybe you've tried it and you want to let me know how it went for you, hit me in the comments below. Thanks for watching.
This production was brought to you by Battery Outfitters. With locations all over the Mid-South, they are your neighborhood battery store.